Tonight, we're not talking about another round of tensions. We're talking about a shockwave event, one that changes the chessboard, not just the headlines. Multiple major outlets are reporting that Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei was killed during joint U.S.-Israeli strikes targeting leadership and military infrastructure in Tehran and beyond. Some reporting says Iranian state media confirmed the death. Other reporting shows there was a window of uncertainty before confirmation. Here's the key. This is not a normal strike on a facility. This is a decapitation strike on the top of the regime. And that is exactly why you're seeing fast-moving claims, counterclaims, and a global rush to answer one question. What comes next? War, collapse, or something in between? Here's how we're going to cover it. Facts. What multiple credible sources are saying happened. Reporting. What's being alleged, and by whom. Analysis. What it means based on how Iran actually functions. Retention beat. Stay with me, because the most important detail tonight isn't just who was hit. It's who can legally replace him and who can physically seize control while the world is watching. And quick ask, if you want clean, accountable coverage, facts separated from spin, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next update. This story is moving by the hour. Let's start with what's being widely reported. According to Reuters and AP reporting, U.S. and Israeli forces launched major strikes on Iran, and the reporting frames this as a high-intensity operation aimed at Iran's senior leadership and strategic military and nuclear-linked targets, with Khamenei's compound in Tehran described as heavily hit. Reuters reporting also describes timing. The operation moved when Khamenei was meeting with top security figures, suggesting a strike designed to maximize the chance of taking out the command node in one blow. Fox's live coverage and follow-ups frame it as a joint offensive, describing leadership targets and the immediate political question. Has Washington planned for what comes next? Now? Why? One Reuters explainer asks directly, why is the U.S. attacking Iran? That tells you something. This is being framed not as a single incident but as a decision point, likely tied to claims about imminent threats, missile programs, nuclear risks, and the failure of negotiations. Here's what I'm not going to do tonight. I'm not going to inflate motives beyond what can be supported. Here's what I will say. This kind of strike is not a message. It's a strategy, either to prevent something imminent or to force regime behavior through shock and paralysis. Retention beat. The media will argue about morality and legality for weeks, but the regime's next move will be decided faster by two realities: Iran's retaliation capacity and Iran's succession mechanism. Now the immediate aftermath. AP reporting describes Iran's retaliation with missile and drone attacks targeting Israel and U.S. positions in the region, and also highlights the broader instability, air traffic disruptions, regional fear, and the risk of widening war. Reuters reporting similarly warns that more strikes are being aimed at Iran and that Iran is signaling a major response, while international leaders push for de-escalation, because once you hit the top of the pyramid, tit for tat is not the model anymore. CBS Live updates cite sources saying Khamenei is presumed dead and describe retaliatory strikes and regional shelter-in-place advisories, another signal that allied governments are preparing for a wider spillover. Now here's the disciplined framing. Fact. Iran has retaliatory tools: missiles, drones, proxies, cyber, maritime harassment. Reporting. There are claims of strikes reaching multiple regional nodes and that defensive interceptions are underway in some places. Analysis. Iran's leadership, especially if it's in transition, may feel pressured to respond hard enough to look strong, but controlled enough to avoid a regime-ending confrontation. That's the razor's edge. Retention beat. Watch for one telltale sign. Does Iran prioritize symbolic retaliation, high visibility, low strategic gain, or do they go for capability retaliation, targeting logistics, bases, shipping lanes, command and control? Because one says, we need to save face. The other says, we're trying to change the battlefield. Now the most important part, and the one that most coverage gets wrong by oversimplifying. Iran is not a normal state where the next guy steps up. The supreme leader is the apex: religious legitimacy, security legitimacy, patronage legitimacy. Fox's coverage explicitly raises the question of a power vacuum and the IRGC's grip, because in a crisis, the Revolutionary Guard is not a stakeholder, it's a power center. Reuters' background reporting reminds you what Khamenei represented: decades of control over political and security institutions, and a system built to survive internal dissent and external pressure. So what happens now? Likely process, general, not speculative fantasy. A temporary governance structure stabilizes decision-making. The formal mechanism moves toward selecting a successor. The real mechanism is whoever controls security forces, media, money flows, and internal loyalty networks. AP reporting references the emergence of transitional arrangements and national mourning, alongside threats of retribution. Now let me separate the narrative types you're going to hear. Narrative A, wish casting. This means the regime collapses. That might be what some people want, but it's not analysis. Narrative B, doomcasting. This guarantees world war. Also, not analysis. My view, a leadership decapitation can produce three realistic tracks. Consolidation, the system tightens, IRGC becomes even more dominant. Fragmentation, internal factions compete, creating instability and unpredictable retaliation. Transition, a successor emerges and attempts controlled legitimacy, possibly with a recalibrated posture. Here's the question I want you to keep in your head. If the strike removed the top symbol of the regime, did it also remove the regime's ability to coordinate? Because if coordination is gone, you don't get peace. You get uncontrolled actors. So what's next, and what should viewers watch? First, expect more information warfare. In the next 24-72 hours, every side will attempt to define reality. Casualty counts, targets hit, who authorized what, and what success even means. Second, watch for measured statements versus maximalist rhetoric. Reuters reporting notes calls for cessation while strikes remain active and threats continue. That's a signal of a live negotiation environment happening behind the scenes, even while the public sees explosions. Third, and this is where I'm going to be skeptical on purpose, watch the accountability gap. When governments take actions this big, the public deserves answers. What was the concrete threat assessment? What were the objectives? Deterrence, degradation, regime change, negotiation leverage. What is the plan if Iran escalates through proxies, shipping lanes, or cyber? Fox's opinion framing is basically that question. Has Washington planned for what comes next? And that is the right question, regardless of where you stand politically. AP and Reuters reporting suggests the strikes were planned and timed, and that negotiations had failed, meaning this wasn't impulsive. The problem is, planned doesn't always mean prepared for second and third order effects. Now the most practical, what to watch list. 1. Retaliation pattern. If Iran focuses on Israel and U.S. bases, that's one level. If Iran targets regional partners, global shipping, or energy infrastructure, that's another. 2. Succession signal. If you see messaging that stresses continuity, unity, and swift appointment, expect consolidation. If you see contradictory messaging, leaks, sudden arrests, expect factional struggle. 3. International posture. If allies start relocating personnel, tightening travel, issuing shelter notices, then planners are bracing for spillover. Final retention beat. The next headline that matters most won't be the loudest one. It will be the one that answers this. Did the strike reduce Iran's capabilities, or did it trigger a regional chain reaction that expands the battlefield? And that's where we'll leave it tonight. If you want the next update, clean, skeptical, and grounded, subscribe to the Caldwell report. And in the comments, do you believe this was a necessary preemptive move or the opening of a wider war? I read them all.